Hi guys and welcome. Gnembon here with an interesting sorting system for an idea I had recently about using shulker boxes as your primary storage system. It may sound convoluted, but let me explain that first. So for many of us, our main base revolves typically around our main storage room that we use to store our basic blocks that we need for every project. Some redstone, basic building blocks, some food, what have you. And not all our projects are in our main base. It's even advisable to build various farms spread across the world so we don't load unnecessarily too many chunks and too many farms at once. However, the main problem with working remotely from home is the constant need to run back and forth between our new build or farm to our home base just to get a few items from the main storage room, because we forgot about something. So the idea is to have our central part of the main storage room with all the basic and even more than basic blocks fit within 27, or in this case exactly 3x9 grid of shulker boxes. Why 3x9? Check the ender chest. It's the same layout. So at any time we need to head out to a remote location to work on a project that will take more than a few minutes. We can simply pack our heart of our personal storage, place it safely in our ender chest, and then lay it down exactly in the same way in a remote location. Using an ender chest would prevent us from the worst scenario, losing all our main items while getting killed somewhere on the way. And what would be really cool? To have a sorting system relatively simple to build and replicate that will support our 3x9 base-in-the-enderchest idea, that we can put down and use with our mobile storage in all our other bases. Obviously, it is a multi-item type storage system, and what's really cool about it? It's 100% silent and should not break due to wrong use of the system by the user. To pack it up without messing up the order of shulker boxes, we need to start with an empty inventory, except our hotbar, and an empty ender chest. First we need to fill up the top row of the inventory with blocks and start picking up the shulker boxes from the middle row of the storage system, making sure we picked up all of them each time. This will place the shulker boxes exactly in the same location in our inventory as they are placed in the wall. After the middle row is completed, we continue to the bottom row starting from the left. Then we clear the top row in the inventory and collect the top row of shulker boxes, starting from the left again. Now all the shulker boxes are organized in our inventory exactly in the same order as they were placed on the wall. Then we just need to shift click them one by one to the empty ender chest. Now when we arrive at the other location, we fill up our inventory with blocks, leaving the hotbar empty. Then we start from the top row, starting from the other side, from the right this time, and shift right click the top row of shulker boxes to the hotbar. So now we can place our shulker boxes on the top row, starting from the left again. Then we do the same with the bottom row, shift clicking from the right again, and then we can sneak place the bottom row of the shulker boxes in place. Then we repeat the procedure with the middle row, and there we have it, our main base storage system in the other location, ready to be sorted exactly in the same order. So here's the sorting system. There were a couple goals when I designed the sorting system. It had to be silent, it had to be relatively straightforward to build so we can repeat it in several places, so one-wide tileability where possible was very important, and easily expandable if we, for example, want to have the system a little bit bigger to support more storage in our main base. So we can also store items in regular chests, which, as we know, can store other shulker boxes with massive amounts of bulk items connected potentially to the same storage system in regular chests. What I didn't really care for was the size of the system, although this is possibly the smallest footprint you can build it with these assumptions, but I assumed that you would build it anywhere underground or dug into the wall anyways. Also, although in principle you cannot break the system yourself, it may in rare occasions fall victim to two bugs in the game, which I'm not too worried about because they are easily detectable and solvable and you would not lose any items because of them anyways. One of them is hopper item duplication and the other is items getting stuck in droppers, both due to chunk loading and unloading issues, not dropper quasi-connectivity. So how this works? This is a slice of the basic module that supports 3 shulker boxes in a column, and the entire sorting system is composed of 3 loops that cycle items around. In this example, we have 3 items waiting to get sorted in this top dropper. To sort n chests, we need to control the behavior of n plus 2 hoppers in a column, one for each shulker box, and one above it and one below it. The hopper on top is responsible of throttling down 1 item per cycle and deliver it at the proper time to the first sorting hopper below it. Although it is possible to build a system without it, it might be harder to control it, and the resulting sorting system may be based on world position and other random aspects may not sort properly top chests. When you give a quick off pulse, at most 4 redstone ticks long, it will suck up exactly 1 item from this dropper above it. Then you need to send a longer, at least 5 redstone ticks off pulse to the first sorting hopper, which would allow it to fetch 1 item from the hopper above it, and then make a decision whether to place it in the chest in front of him or not. Then we do the same with the other sorting hopper, so it can do the same, suck in that item and check if we can place it in the chest. The third sorting hopper can place this item in the chest, so it first sucks up it from the hopper above it and then places it in the chest in the matching spot. That's why the chests in the sorting system had to be marked up with items that go into each slot. Next item on the list is a button, which doesn't have its place in this column. So it gets sucked up, all the sorting hoppers fail, so the items goes back to the loop, goes up the elevator and ends up in the next slice of the system. In practice, we don't need to power them one by one, but we need to alternate 5 tick off pulses between every other hopper to achieve the same way of hoppers processing the items. So the entire system will be running off a simple clock that has a 5 tick on and 5 tick off pulse. We could potentially run this entire system on a much slower clock, let's say allowing 5 items at a time in each hopper. We just need to make sure that it allows for 10 hopper operations to be performed on each sorting hopper at a time, but it'll take much longer for a single item to go through. So that's the actual layout of the circuitry inside the item loop that is one-wide tileable and allows us to control each hopper independently. For an elevator, I'm using the design by Acrobaticon. I'll put the link to this design in the description, which is the only design I know that is tileable, robust enough so when the items back up in the bottom dropper it doesn't break it, and it's 100% silent. Also, the fact that droppers are powered only by redstone torches makes this design safe from all the locality and dropper bad powering issues, because each dropper is powered exactly by one torch only, either directly or through quasi-connectivity, and this torch, as the only power source for these 2 droppers, also notifies them directly about the power state change, which mitigates all the cross-bud issues, so we can tile these elevators without any potential bud issues. To keep the system spinning every time an item passes through the slice of the loop, we detect it using these comparators and send a refreshing pulse to the larger pulse extender below it. This pulse extender powers the 10-tick clock that powers and unpowers each line of sorting hoppers in sync. In this design, we don't need to control the dropper towers from the main clock as they run independently, which ensures that we have 100% silent operation. The signal from the clock is distributed among all the 5 hopper layers to make sure they are powered in an alternating manner, 5 pulses behind each other, by selecting precisely delays on all the repeaters on the side here. So now how to make it. Instead of a simple block-by-block tutorial, I thought a Lego-style guide would be more appropriate, especially that if you approach this build in a specific manner, it would be much simpler to build than just building other way around. So first we need to find a wall where we can put our 9x3 shulker boxes using our ender chest style layout. And obviously at least a 9 wide and a 3 high wall would be required, with plenty of space available behind it. In the first step we need to clear out some of the area. We need to dig 3 blocks deep, 2 blocks in the front, 2 blocks to the side where the input is going to go, and 11 blocks down the wall. And all the redstone will go up to 5 blocks above the floor level. We will not be using all the blocks in the space here, but that's what's good to have ready. First we will start with the circuitry, as it will be buried below the hoppers. First we start with these comparators that will be reading from the bottom hoppers each time an item will be making a loop through the system, which are flush with the wall here. Then we'll follow them with repeaters, so we get a signal every time an item still needs processing. This comparator here will be reading from the input hopper, indicating that there's more work to be done. This goes to the repeaters, where one is on 2 ticks, which is long enough to start our auxiliary pulse extender, which refreshes our mains pulse extender over here. If the pulse extender is powered, this indicates that the system is currently sorting items, so we can grab what's here and negate it with a torch to turn off our ready lamp. This lamp will indicate where the system is not doing anything and ready to sort items. We also branch off to the simple 10 redstone ticks or 1 second clock, and we can grab its output back into the block. So when you have something like that. Since the access to this area will be limited, now we want to test it if it works by sending a pulse to this block, which should result in the clock turning on for several cycles. Perfect! Now where the shulker box is gonna go, and 1 block below them and 1 block above them, we put some temporary blocks, and then attach hoppers from the back pointing into these temporary blocks. We would also put droppers above them. At the back, 4 blocks away from the hoppers, we place our dropper elevator towers, which are 6 blocks high and start exactly where the repeater with our output signal goes. Then we build 4 towers next to each other with 1 block of space, followed by 5 other towers. That's our elevating section and the sorting section of the loop done. At this step, we would also cover our input redstone with blocks and lamps with our build-appropriate block at this position. At the end, we cover the lamps with solid blocks and attach it to the block with a lamp on top. That's our system is ready indicator. Now we have to connect the loops using hoppers, so the items can circle around. First is the input line that goes to the first tower from our input chest comparator. Then we need to connect 3 sorting hoppers at the bottom with the first 3 remaining dropper towers. Then we start to weave the hoppers. First goes around the back like so, and then next lines connect around them, so you can see from this position, you can connect each sorting line with an elevator shifted by 1 block. Up top we do the same, but we start from the end first. First 5 pipes go straight to the droppers on top, and then in the middle we start to weave it back again, and we should end up with a pattern like that. At this point we can add the circuitry for the elevators. It repeats exactly the same for all 9 elevators, so we can just look at this one here. So we read through the block with the comparator into a torch that locks this pair of hoppers pointing into each other with 1 items inside them. So whenever we have something in the bottom dropper, we start the item to cycle back and forth, causing all the torches to blink. The selection of an item in the hopper pairs is not random, as we should select an item appropriate for a fee, or rather a fine, for Mojang each time the system stops due to item getting duplicated in the system. This is our way of maybe not preventing the hopper duplication, but preventing our frustration springing from it. If you think a beacon is too much, you can always put a diamond block, a sponge or a shulker shelf for example. What do you think would be an appropriate fee for not fixing this bug yet? After that, we continue with blocks and torches in this layout. Then, to limit the lag caused by light updates from the redstone torches, we put some light sources here and there. This causes all the redstone torches to have a higher light level at their position than they emit by themselves, so the light updates would not propagate. Now we can test if we build the loop correctly by disconnecting the input for a second and making sure that an item travels on itself through the system no problem. Now is the time to fill up the inside of our loop with the circuits that control the sorting action. Each slice we need to repeat 9 times. At the bottom we place dust, repeaters set to 2, block and a repeater on default. On top of it we place another repeater for the next layer on default. Then we add a second layer with blocks, 1 ugly solid block and another build-appropriate solid block. This will be visible from the fronts once we remove the shulker boxes. On top we place a dust, another build-appropriate block with the dust on top and a repeater on full delay. At the end we put another line of build-appropriate solid blocks covered with redstone with 2 blocks behind to cut these 3 lines, preventing them from canoodling. We also place appropriate solid blocks in front of the top sorting hoppers with a line of dust on top of them. Now we can start connecting them to the clock. First we step up our blocks like so with the repeater here set to 3rd setting and this one on default. Then we take the signal from this block here with the repeater set to 2 ticks and connect it to the build-appropriate blocks next to the first input hopper. Since we will be connecting both of these repeaters together, this will change the nature of the clock pattern from 5 ticks on, 5 off to 6 ticks on, 4 off, which would prevent this hopper from sacking more than 1 items per cycle when the system is running. This ensures that the items will not back up anywhere in the system, but also allows us to check on the items while the system is running in case we want to help it and place some items ourselves. I found from my experience that it is actually a really good thing to have, as sometimes we might see a full stack of items somewhere and placing them directly in the appropriate chest instead of waiting for it to finish sorting is a better deal. This also allowed the system to read that there are still items to be sorted, so the system can just keep spinning. Now we bring the signal up from this repeater to the top line using style appropriate blocks, and then we go out and place a repeater here. We staircase a little bit using slabs to the top where we connect to the line that locks the hoppers on top with 2 repeaters, one on 3rd and one on 2nd setting. You might be concerned that this redstone emerged here from the redstone below it, but that's intended. We want to limit the length of the off poles here as well, so the stop sorting hopper can sack only 1 item per cycle, regardless how many items is in the top dropper. It is also important at this step to flip this front-facing hopper to the back. Now we can trigger the system again and check our timings. If we stand in this position, we should see both lines here turn on and off at the same time in the exact opposite to the other two. Here on this block and on this repeater hidden inside there, you can see a little bit of it. On the top, you should see that the off pulse unlocking the top sorting hopper should be much shorter. And that's all the redstone done. Now we have to frame the interface using appropriate blocks. On both sides at the back, we have to place 4 blocks up above the hoppers, with one sticking out there. We need to cover the sides of the input and output chests with blocks that allow us to access them, like stairs or sea lanterns. The last step is totally up to you. If your ceiling is 3 or 4 blocks high, then you don't need to worry all about the redstone there in the front. In case your ceiling is higher, you need to create this decorative shelf to cover it, or use alternate redstone, which we'll be covering in a moment. I use here a few flyer posts here with the smooth trophy here for decoration. After removing of the shulker boxes, we should see only the redstone bits that we couldn't possibly hide. So that was your tutorial. At the end, 2 more things. It's very easy to extend this design to the next module, which can be longer than the first one. We can do it by simply putting 1 block of gap and repeating the 5 signals on the 5 lines that control all the sorting hoppers, and repeating back the line that sends the input signal that we still have items to sort. The only limitation is the hopper width, which needs space, and with 3 high sorting system for our basic base-in-the-enderchest idea needs, it's maximum of 11 rows of chests that can fit in a single extension. So if you would put it in your main base, you would place your 3x9 mobile ender chest storage first to give its priority for receiving items, and then the other chest for the storage system to receive the excess items. The basic layout can be expanded upwards, which makes the entire slice higher and deeper as well, to accommodate for an extra line, for the extra layers of hoppers. In this design, we still can use only shulker boxes in the top level where chests wouldn't open because of the solid blocks above this top place. This can be placed inside by expanding the design in the same way again, allowing for more attaching double chests on all levels up front. Since the design uses independent item elevators, if there is a trap chest in front of the hoppers, we can still open it no problem. The system will resolve a small backlog of items that form by locking one of the droppers into the next loop. You might be thinking that it sucks that every time we want to expand it by 1 more chest in a slice, we need to make a design 1 block deeper. But if you look at this 5 boxes design, other ways of doing it that do not grow in depth can actually fit in the same footprint. Here's the design that Exumavoid used in Hermitcraft 3 world, which was tileable, but tiles were alternating, which in turn made the system much more complex to put together, and if you make a mistake on one of the repeater timings, you will need to rip the entire circuitry to find it. In our system, all the repeaters can be seen from the side, so we can easily spot it. And it is also much easier to put together. Here's another idea from JL's storage box. That's because of the delays on the hoppers and comparators inside would require much slower clock, meaning that the system would be almost twice as slow as the others. And because of the random locality issues and bad powering of the droppers inside, like this comparator, never turn off. So all in all, I think our design for the internal circuitry was pretty good and pretty compact as well. The system shouldn't require any maintenance, but couple things can happen, especially if you leave it running while we log out and move away from the area. It doesn't happen often, so I wouldn't worry about it, but I just wanted to mention it because there are simple methods to detect it and fix it. And these issues are not caused by any misuse of the player, but because of the derpiness of the game and its bugs. First is the hopper item duplication that may occur in the dropper tower elevators. There is currently no way to prevent it completely. You can minimize it by making sure that hoppers are not in 2 different chunks and possibly placing them in spawn chunks, but it still may happen if the game restarts even in the spawn chunks. If you are not deliberately trying to exploit it, it should happen rarely and it's really easy to detect it. Simply items are not getting through the system. We can then check in the back, and if we see one of the torches turned off and no items not being elevated, it means that there is a duplicated item in this pair of hoppers. That's why I said to put something like a diamond in the hoppers, so every time it happens, we can collect a small gratification from the developers of the game as a token of apology for this bug still being present in the game. Items can also get stuck in the elevators due to chunk loading and unloading issues, and this can happen to all dropper elevators regardless of the design. The system will be running without problems with a few items getting stuck in the droppers, but occasionally we may decide to perform the cleaning. It's a little bit like dead pixel detection in high-end cameras. To perform this check, we can simply put in a sorter, let's say 10 items that are not in the system, and if all 10 end up at the end, this means that the system is more likely clean. But if we see less than 10 of them, or we see other items, this means that some of these swords have kicked other items in the elevators, where they got stuck. In this case, we need to go to the back and check where these items are. Thankfully, we have a good access to all the potential droppers from the inside, and wouldn't worry about that too much. Even if 1 or 2 items get stuck in the gears of the system due to this bug, they will be kicked out eventually by other items, so technically, even if you didn't do any cleaning in the whole lifetime of the entire system, it shouldn't be a big deal anyways. So this idea of the mobile base will be perfect on a Psycraft server where we don't have predefined bases but we hop from one large project to the other. But before we upgrade to 1.11 I decided to implement it in my own world. Here's the old multi-item sorting system which I'm keeping here because it still works just fine. I just replaced this 3 high section here with shulker boxes. It's not 9 wide, but sometimes you would want to have these spare 3 slots in the ender chest for stuff like elytra anyways. So all these chests are connected to the same sorting system, and the cool thing about them, I can, for example, group certain items that are much more common into respective shulker boxes and store them there. So I can pretty much store all the items that I have within the sorting system. So now I can simply pack up and go to the new location and plop our storage system there. Wow, check out how technologically advanced these villagers were. A spare multi-item sorting system I can use. I promised you a silent sorting system, but it seems like this one isn't. Whatever. That was your almost 100% silent, that's the moosehead antler noises, robust, multi-item sorting system which you can use along with the base-in-the-enderchest storage concept. I hope you enjoyed the video and liked this idea, and if so, please leave me a like. Some say it helps in somewhere something if you leave a like. I don't know it, but at least I know you enjoyed it. So share with others, leave me a comment in the downer, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.